Let's kick things off. It's now time to move to our first panel session. Those of you who are still outside, kindly make your way back to the hall. We'll proceed with the first session now. This session will explore the dynamic role of youth in shaping the narrative of our environmental future, and how they can exercise climate diplomacy and wield moral persuasion to ignite policy advocacy while securing the support of both the private and also public sectors. Please join me in welcoming the moderator for this first session, the Chief Human Resource Officer of BPMB, Datin Sainursalwa Sani. But before we allow Datin Sainursalwa to take over, allow me to just briefly introduce the speakers of this first session. The first of which is Dr. Nagulendran. He is the Secretary General of the Ministry of Youth and Sports Malaysia, who's involved mainly in policy formulation, developing legal frameworks, diplomacy and negotiations, as well as stakeholder engagements on the many issues involving national and global environmental governance. Nurfatin Hamzah is a co-founder of Youths United for Earth, Malaysia's leading non-profit mobilizing youths towards environmental action through storytelling, grassroots campaigns, and advocacy, and is an MSc student in biodiversity and conservation at University Malaysia Terengganu, or UMT. Atteleth Peris is the Program Director of Reef Malaysia and co-founded the YCLI Council of Malaysia, a youth association that focuses on creating alumni engagement and activities on sustainability-related topics. Last but not least, Ms. Livvashini is an Eco Schools participant and a Form 3 student from SMK Raja Perempuan of Ipoh, Peris, who hopes that one day we can beautify the world and make it a place that would fulfill everyone's needs. Looking forward to a very interesting session. Datin Sainursalwa, the floor is yours. A round of applause.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good morning and welcome to this insightful panel discussion on climate change, convergence of the young minds. Together, today, we are not just participants in the dialogue, but also as stewards of shared future, recognizing the urgency and significance of the climate crisis. Before we begin our session today, we are having a special tribute, a poem from our Miss Liva on environment. Therefore, Miss Liva, the floor is yours.
A very good morning to everyone present here today. On this fine morning, I am blessed to be at this exquisite, luxurious 5-star Mandarin Oriental Hotel. My name is Livvashini Sri Visnutharan, and I am from Sekolah Menengah Kebangsaan Raja Perempuan Ipoh, Peris. Today, I will be presenting to you a poem that was written by me, entitled Crumbling into Pieces. Innovations and new inventions, new products and new structures filled the land with cosmical constructions, all led to skin-tearing substances. Full of organisms and creatures, great and small at any region. One-of-a-kind crafted creation, collapsing inches by inches. This earth, this world, this land of hope, crumbling to pieces, killing souls. Trees being cut down, forests burnt, clearing of land that led to floods. Is it morning mist? But we suffocate. Your muscles enfeeble, deteriorate. Hazy soot in your system, your lungs damaged, weakened. Looking around, digging through sand. No sign, no clue, no creatures on land. The loss of century, everything they owned, already in grief, yet merciless hunters relentlessly poach. an atrocious activity we cannot cope. No more marks on sandy beaches, no warbling in greenwood, no more roaring in woodland. They have gone extinct, irreplaceable. Given a diamond, yet treated like stone. Worth more than life, cared for like it was nothing. Where was the bigger picture? Where was the intelligence? What happened to all the promises made in front of millions? Where were the promises made to our Creator? Our abode, our home, land of greenery, land of growth. Turning dull, ruined, all for a nature-killing product, pathetic behavior being held up high. Is this how we take care of a prize? Melting, burning, tumbling down, crashing, exploding, but not a sound. The silence being too loud for those who cared. Can we begin today? Can we start now to rebuild, recline, rewind, to mend all mistakes made through time? Let me be the hope. Let us be the light. For powerless is a word I never want to say. For omnipotent, a word I'll bring to my grave. We have the competence. We have the potential. Though we are adolescent, we never back down from challenges. We will bring change. We will empower. This is our promise for all coming generations. I end this poem with my vow to never back down from my ground. My words may be immature. My poem might not be plenteous. But this 15-year-old hopes she has opened your cage, nourish your heart, to begin today to play your part. 8,760 hours, 365 days, and we will be able to initiate a change. With that, I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Liva. With this, I would like to invite all our panels to join us on stage. Can I have Dr. Nagu? Next, we would like to welcome Nurfatin. Mr. Don as well on the stage. And of course, our lovely Ms. Liva. While the topics we are about to discuss today will be on the youth, but the range of the panelists covers years of experience, cumulative, of almost, I think, 100 more years. Okay, let's begin. In these crucial moments of history, the convergence of young minds, like all of us, takes center stage as a powerful force driving change, innovation, and reimagining our relationship with the environment. Our distinguished panelists, representing, as I said, a diverse range of expertise, experience, and perspective, are here to delve into the intersection of youth, climate change, and the collective responsibility we shall bear. I would like to begin the conversation with Dr. Nagu. Doctor, based on your close involvement with youth at KBS, can you provide a brief overview of the current state of youth involvement in key global issues, such as climate change, and why is it crucial for the youth to engage in it?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Datin. Salam sejahtera, salam Malaysia Madani kepada semua. First of all, I think a big round of applause for Livvashini for that poem. I think that poem just says it all, and so we can end the panel with terima kasih now. No, I think we have spoken about this issue about environmental issues, and every workshop, every symposium you go, you just it's augmented, right? What are the challenges? But I think the voice of the youth is very important. I'm now with the Ministry of Youth and Sports, and I think youth, under the new law, it's defined from the age of 15 till 30. And in Malaysia, I think 1 in every 3 of us are youth. So there are about 9 million youths in Malaysia. And to answer your question, Datin, I think why youth are important is because I think the future belongs to them, and I think they need to be part of the narrative. But I just like to remind people, actually, in terms of documentation, we have it all. And I was glad that the minister touched about the 1992 Earth Summit. In 1992, when world leaders met at Rio for the Earth Summit, and I think we came out with a declaration, which had the Rio Declaration, which, if I'm not mistaken, has got 17 principles. And if I'm not mistaken, Principle 10 talks about participation. Sorry, there are 27 principles, and Principle 10 talks about participation. And Principle 10, it clearly says that everyone, including youth, should be part of the conversation, should be part of decision making. So I think moving forward, we need to get youth more involved. And in KBS, in Kementerian Belia dan Sukan, we have got this thing called Youth Consultative Council. It's going to meet this month. And this consultative council happens at district, state, and federal level. And youth voices are heard through these forums. And I've been 8 months there, and I'm looking forward to the next consultative council. And I hope issues of environment are cascaded up, because this council is in district, state, and federal. So youth voices can be brought through these consultative council meetings. So this is something that I think we can advocate more. And I'll stop there and maybe wait for the others to respond to other parts of your question.
A simple question to you, Dr. Nagu. On the scales of 1 to 10, how would you see the current state youth involvement on key global issues such as climate change, before I pivot to Fatin after this?
No, I think the dialogue is very vibrant. I mean, if you go for a UN meeting, you will hear the youth speaking, you will hear the youth being very organized. I mean, climate change, you have Yongo, which Malaysian youth delegation is involved. But I think we have to be very sincere about this. The government, how much are we doing to get their voice heard? And I think that just cannot be lip saying, you know. I mean, just saying that we want youth to be part of the equation, just sekadar di bibir tidak cukup lah. I think we need to really get it more constructive. We have, as I said, I have this platform, the Majlis Perundingan Belia, right, which is there, but unfortunately issues of environment don't come up. It's usually there are other issues such as unemployment, mental health. But I hope that the youth who are advocating for environment do bring up these issues. We even got Parliament Belia, which is held on an annual basis. Issues of environment does not, or most cases do not make it towards that. So I'll say the youth are very organized, but I think we need to get them more involved in a more meaningful way. There are some very progressive laws in Malaysia. I was involved in one law which was involved in genetic engineering, biosafety. That makes it very clear that everyone, including the Rakyat, can participate in decision making. Our Environmental Quality Act, Environmental Impact Assessment, has got participatory approach. But what we need is to empower the youth. I know Julian is shaking his head, but it's there. The elements are there. But I know youth need to be empowered to have a more meaningful voice in all these processes. It's a very interesting discussion, but we'll listen to the rest. Thank you.
So, Fatin, Dr. Nagu give his and KBS commitment on this. But then before I ask this question, delving deeper into the discussion, Fatin, your mission goes beyond raising awareness, where you seek to amplify the visibility of youth in Malaysia's environmental landscape, inspiring the new generation to become an earth stewards. In your views, how can young people effectively engage with the issues of climate change and make your voices being heard at a larger scale?
Thank you so much, Datin Salwa, and thank you so much for the opportunity. Regarding this question, I think it is framed in a way like how young people could be part of climate action and also make our voices heard. Before I start suggesting things, I first would like to highlight the fact that for many of us young Malaysians, being part of climate action is actually not a choice anymore. It's a necessity. It's something that we just do because I echo the slogan of one of the youth group in Malaysia with Climate Action Malaysia. The slogan is, kalau kita diam, kita tenggelam. At this point, it is that is where we're at particularly, and a lot of young people are acting or being part of environmental and climate action because we do not have a choice. That is number one that I would like to highlight. Even like, for example, where I live in Kuala Nerus, Terengganu, 5 minutes away is actually a hotspot for coastal erosion. It is something that I see every day when I go lalu at the jalan near the beach. That is something that I'm seeing every day, right? So we definitely do not have a choice at this point. And in terms of youth in climate action, there are two things that I would like to highlight. Number one is, I think a lot of young people, the most effective way to be part of climate action is actually to look within and also to look around us. But I meant by looking within is actually to really recognize our talent, our interest, and also our skill sets, because there are so many things and avenues that we can do and be part of. Like with youth, we actually do a lot of storytelling. So we interview a lot of young Malaysians who are doing amazing stuff. They might be volunteers, they might be young professionals, for example. So we try to amplify their voices and their way of being part of climate action. And I also think like this question was also talking about global, like taking our voice to the global level, which is, I think, is very much important, but also we cannot deny the fact that we also need voices on the local and national level, right? And for example, for global level, we have my friends right now, they are preparing to go to COP28, and they're literally trying to find badges by themselves, they're trying to find funding by themselves, and they are preparing with the knowledge in terms of COP and also COP28 priorities and learning from scratch. So I feel like that is that's our part when it comes to global level, by bringing the voices of young people to conferences such as COP. But again, accessibility to that kind of event is of course not for everybody, right? Those who can actually find money and time and even skip schools to actually go to such event, right? Just to bring our voices up there. But at the same time, like I've said, it is also equally important to bring our voices on a local and national level. And we are already seeing that, especially in the government side, we have a lot of young people. We have some young people who are part of the consultation panel on climate change, and young people are part of community initiatives. Young people are part of grassroots campaigns and innovative projects in their kampong or in their own locality. So by looking within us, I just like to highlight the fact that everyone or every young people actually has a power to actually do something, right? And that is like looking within. And next, I would like to highlight on looking around us. I feel like a lot of young people we are part of a community that might be affected by the impacts of climate change. Like I've said, my house is literally 5 minutes away from a hotspot for coastal erosion, right? So I feel like a lot of young people can actually just look around us, just go out and just look around us, what are the challenges of our own community. For example, coastal erosion in Kuala Nerus, Terengganu is different from sand mining issue in Perak, which is contributing to the land reclamation in Penang, for example. So we have all these different perspectives and different environmental challenges that are happening around us. But at the same time, I feel like by looking within and looking around us, I feel it's also important for young people to be mindful of positionality. We need to take into account that the fact that I'm here today, it's because probably I'm privileged, right? And there are so many young people out there who cannot voice out their own voices. And for example, a voice of a young advocate from Kuala Lumpur is different from someone who is living in Borneo, or maybe it's also different from someone who is undocumented, for example. So we have this identity and also privilege that in a way shape the way we understand the climate crisis and also addressing it. So I feel like young people, we need to be mindful of positionality as well. So that is the first part, which is looking within.
and looking around us. I think another thing that I would like to highlight when it comes to climate action, when it comes to young people, is actually vote responsibly. I think that is very, very important. Given that now we have the voting age has decreased to 18 compared to 21, I feel like this is the exact time where we actually demand for leaders who actually prioritize the environment and the people. And interestingly, during the last election, I actually heard a very interesting narrative, which is, why would you're so selfish to demand for environmental protection. Why don't we put effort into things which are more people related, like poverty, for example, which is really weird because I really could not think of any environmental issues that will not impact people. So like, for example, we're talking about haze, we're talking about that is like, we're talking about haze and our health, we're talking about human-wildlife conflict and the security of people who are living in the forest regions, we're talking about flooding and how we are bearing the damage, and also that would impact our economy, right? So I think that the second thing, so to summarize, the second thing that I feel that we should all do as young people to actually vote responsibly and educate ourselves and try to understand that environmental issues are definitely political issues, and we have the rights and also the chance to actually vote for environmentally conscious leaders.
Thank you, Fatin. I like the fact you mentioned about how we work around, things matters around us, right? And if you notice, nowadays, there is an increased numbers with regards to youth-led movement. Your view, Dr. Nagu and Fatin, you see it as a positive trend, or you would have a differing views of this?
No, of course it's a positive trend. It's great to see more youth involved in these discussions. My little concern is at international settings. I've noticed some of our youths terbawa-bawa dengan narrative negara barat. So I think I'm glad that the minister re-emphasized this very important principle of common but differentiated responsibilities. You look, Malaysia can do, I used to tell people I can become the Prime Minister and I can make it compulsory that everybody goes green, but there'll be a very little change on what happens to climate change because our contribution to greenhouse gases is so small. But on the other side, Malaysia can do a lot for biodiversity because we are a mega biodiverse country. So the narrative about climate change, we have to be very careful because I've noticed many a times some of our young advocates push for drastic measures to be taken, but they forget about this CBDR, common but differentiated responsibilities. And I think here is where education becomes very important, history becomes very important, because people always lament that our federal constitution does not talk about environment. It doesn't. The closest you get is Penyu. If you Google the federal constitution, the closest, and of course it's got the Senarai Bersama, the concurrent list which talks about wildlife, which talks about forestry. But why we have a constitution like that, there is a reason behind it, right? But now I think the youth can bring this kind of discourse, make it, and I'm glad that Fatin said we need to localize this narrative to ensure that Malaysia's circumstances is presented internationally as well. If not, you'll get demands which are ridiculous and goes against the real principles of common but differentiated responsibilities. And glad that Minister also spoke about loss and damage. So developed countries are totally denying historical depths and all these elements which are very important to our discourse. So while, yes, we can be very critical, and I'm glad that the youth should be very critical, but they need to position themselves to look what Malaysia's interest is in these international settings. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nagu. And I feel like I'm really glad that Dr. Nagu mentioned about EIA, which is definitely something that I would like to cover here when it comes to youth-led movement and how we can actually influence climate policies, right? So I feel like this is very personal for me because actually when I was in university, I went to this workshop and that's how I came about and got to know about EIA. And it was done by the Persatuan Aktivis Sahabat Alam Kuasa, and the latihan is basically called the Latihan Aktivis Alam Sekitar. So we were exposed to the concept of EIA, forest governance, and also practical steps on how we could be part of it. For example, like the public hearing and also giving feedbacks, right? And I feel like at that particular point of time, I was like, wow, this is so empowering. Like, young people are teaching other young people. It's like a peer learning environment, and we kind of like know that, okay, this regulatory instrument exists, and this is how we could do something and be part of it, right? And at the same time, I feel like youth-led movements, we have the capacity to actually mobilize public opinions because, like, for example, we know how AIA work and how we could contribute our voices there. And at the same time, young people are very close or synonymous with social media. So if you go to the social media, there's so many campaigns related to objection of projects which are sensitive to the environment, for example, and people are doing explanatory videos, people are doing petitions, and also some groups are even like teaching other young people to how to write letters to your MP, giving templates and how to write letters to the Department of Environment. So I feel like not just knowing or exercising our rights, but at the same time, young people have the capacity to also influence public opinions, especially with the use of social media. And thirdly, I would also want to highlight the youth representation in decision-making spaces. So there is an increased number, I guess, in terms of youth visibility in these decision-making spaces. But at the same time, like I'm saying, I was saying is that probably people who have resources can actually attend. How about people in the kampong or indigenous people, for example, indigenous youth, for example, how would they get their voices to be heard? So it's definitely not easy, and like some of us are literally skipping schools to attend these consultation panels and all. But at the same time, given that looking at the space here today and the audience here today, I believe that all of you are also from businesses, CSOs, and also government. I feel like another thing that I would like to highlight when it comes to youth representation is to be mindful of tokenization, because I feel like that is very much happening these days. A lot of, maybe organizations are, we invite youth because it's trendy. So we really hope that this is not happening, and youth engagement should be done with the spirit of solidarity rather than charity. It's not like you're making space for us because, oh kesian, mestilah kena ada youth, But rather it's a form of solidarity with the fact that everybody here is a part of an ecosystem. So youth is an element of the ecosystem, businesses is an element of the ecosystem, CSOs, government and all. And we are just like making spaces for each other and amplifying each other's voices. So solidarity instead of charity. Thank you, that's all from me.
Very nice, Fatin. I like the fact when you talk about accessibility, but then this allows segue to our primary focus today on building a leadership cadre of youth environment champion. Mr. Don, your vision extends beyond personal interests. You aspire for a future where rising youth leaders have ample opportunity to actively participate in environmental protection, policy making and conservation at national level. In your views, what policies or initiatives should government implement to incentivize private sectors to actively engage in sustainable practice? How do you see this PPP and youth could dance in tango?
So first of all, I would like to say I want to acknowledge what government have been doing. Right? So what YB Nick Azmi have been sharing just now, what the steps government have been doing. Tax incentives, programs, reforestations, that is being proposed and of course the focus of the government in the coming years. So probably the angle that I'm coming from is basically initiative that's promote proactiveness. So, and what I mean is how private sector can do more than what is listed in the KPIs. So, and then the best explanation that I've read about it is an article published in the Edge Malaysia. The writer name is Vijay Ganesh from Sunway Business School. So it says that in 2016, basically a lot of these private sector are compulsory to do sustainability reporting, and we see a lot of publicly registered companies in Malaysia doing that as well. However, unlike in the UK, who have this Section 172 of the Companies Act 2006, which basically says that when making decision, the director need to consider interests of shareholders, employee, customers, suppliers, the environment and community. So we do not have something like that in Malaysia. And why does it matter? to me, I only got to know about this article like 1 week ago, so it doesn't click to me until this morning. So why is it? Because, so although we are encouraging our private sectors, right, to basically do sustainable reporting, but when it comes to proactiveness, it doesn't really transfer towards that direction. So without policies or acts such as what UK have, which is a Section 72, right? So there is no need for directors to consider sustainability-related issues, to be proactive when considering sustainability-related issues. And how does it relate to Reef Check, right? So there are a few instances in my own personal experience where, okay, Reef Check, for those who don't know, Reef Check is a marine conservation NGO and also resource management. We have been around since 2007. We work with private sectors and government agencies, especially Jabatan Perikanan. So along the way, we have private sectors coming to us and say like, hey, can we collaborate with Reef Check doing some initiatives? And one of the most common initiatives are beach cleanup. Of course, we welcome this initiative. But along the way, we wanted the program to be more than just beach cleanup, be more impactful. So we would suggest hey, can we do more activity with the communities and stuff like that? And then, of course, some of these programs have limited budget. We understand the situation. So we would say okay, if we were to continue this kind of program next year, are you willing to consider doing more impactful programs with us and stuff like that? And then some of the feedback that I've personally get is, we'll look into it, but unfortunately there's limited budget because programs like this is not part of a core business. So when someone tells me like that, so it makes me think so does that mean beach cleanup or all this kind of initiative is just a CSR program? It's just a mere KPI to be achieved, right? So having such as this kind of act, right, or policy in place would encourage directors or even business owners to be more proactive, to see it more than just KPIs, to see it more than just something you tick and report by the end of the year. And why does it is important for us marine conservation organizations such as Reef Check, is because we are looking into programs that are more than short terms. Okay, now, Julian used to tell us that we have to think of 5-year programs, or in fact 10 years program, because 5 or 10 years program, that means we are looking not just into environmental aspect, we are looking into building community. Okay, we're seeing degradation that happen throughout the world. It's more than just environmental, it's becoming a systemic issues. So the alternative that we propose is community related. That's why the programs that Reef Check develops, sometimes, of course, we introduce programs for conservation, but also some of this conservation means that community have to change their way of doing business. And that also means we have to come up with alternative that would change community behavior and business activities. So that means we are looking more into environmental, but also dealing with social and local economy. So having this specific acts such as this would encourage decision-making among private sectors to be more proactive. And a great example is what ALAM is doing this. So ALAM is a program under BPMB, and how ALAM is supporting YEL is a long-term program. So we need more of that through legislative or act that are being introduced, encouraging proactive within private sectors. Yeah.
Thank you, Don. You go very high levels on the policy changes. But before we go there, perhaps Ms. Liva, so we are going down really to the 1,000 feet now, okay? You mentioned your favorite animal is capybara, and you aspire to contribute to a world that not only boosts beauty, but also fulfill the needs of every individual. Do you think it is important if we have a more environment program in schools? What would you like to see more happening in schools with your teachers, friends, and family? There are lots of parents here. Perhaps your insight could be a learning point for all of us as well.
Okay, thank you. As said, we'll take the capybara as an example. Capybaras are something which has been exposed to social media, and youth or students, children have gotten to know about this animal which was once unknown. So this small thing that was able to make a change in people or youth to start caring about the environment is something important. So speaking about programs, as we know, we have had the Eco School program and also a bunch of innovation competitions that many students participated in. These are the kind of things or programs that we need more. As we know, not innovations and environment is not everyone's cup of tea. But then, when we have something to reward youth, since when we talk about environment or youth, we can separate it into two groups. There's one group which is aware and willingly doing all of this since they care about the environment. And there's another group which is aware, but they're doing it since they want a reward. When we speak about the group who is willingly doing it, since they care, it is only about 35% of the youth, whereas the rest, they don't really care, not to offend anybody. But through innovation competitions and all these programs, being rewarded a cash prize or even just a name for them to be proud of, this will attract more of the youth to participate, meaning we will have more people which acknowledge how much impact all of these tiny things done by each and one of us. So if I had to say what we can do to increase awareness, honestly, I would say increase more competitions and even programs. That's one of the main things that can attract the youth.
Thanks, Miliva. Maybe I would like to ask the same question, but at different levels to Fatin. When we talk at the university level, is it the same formula? We talk about competition, we talk about activities, right? Would you think it's the same formula on how university could integrate environment and climate change topic more effectively into their curricula?
Right. Thank you so much for the question. I think for university level, I would say it's like a mini version of the real world, I guess. So when you're talking about environmental issues are very much multifaceted. So I feel like the way we could approach an environmental issue is via interdisciplinary approach. So I feel like in universities, we have to really foster collaboration, especially when it comes to projects in between different faculties, for example. And I feel like they would also allow more innovation and peer-to-peer learning, and also telling young people that there is no one way to be part of environmental and also climate action. So sometimes, I'm doing environmental courses, so that's why I'm doing climate action. But actually, you could literally be doing any courses to be part of climate action. You could be doing finance, you could be doing law, you could be doing fashion even. So I feel it's really important to go with these interdisciplinary projects even more in university to kind of have like a bigger perspective on how we could tackle environmental issues. And secondly, as someone who is studying in Kuala Neras Terengganu, I feel like it's very important to increase disaster preparedness program, because like right now baru banjir semalam. So a lot of the houses dah naik air, and people who are students who are not from Terengganu are just like clueless, like what do I do? Like rumah masuk air. So I feel like that's how university can actually play a part, especially in disaster hotspots, which is to really take into account or increase disaster preparedness program, because probably Terengganu students would be more dah terbiasa, like to deal with flood, for example. But people who are outside from Terengganu, they come to this university and they're just like, okay, banjir, what do I do? So I feel like those are the two things, interdisciplinary projects and increase the disaster preparedness program in universities.
Dr. Nago, I think the conversation is about how we could change the curriculum, how we improve the learning process. But then the driving force at KBS, how would you then be able to see and work seamlessly with those multiple government agencies, making sure that the ideas propagated being translated into action?
Thank you, Datin. I was taken up with Liva's point that conservation is not everybody's cup of tea. And even a healthy lifestyle is not everybody's cup of tea. So what is happening to our individual body is also happening to the environment. So I think we need lifestyle changes. And from intermittent fasting, that can also be translated to SDG 12 on our sustainable consumption and production. So it needs to be translated from internally to externally. So this is where I think schools, and I think I need to pay recognition to Livas teachers who are here today. I think there are 2 teachers here who accompanied, because teachers, besides the curriculum, teachers play a big role in shaping individuals. I mean, I was touched by many of my teachers in my primary and secondary school and even at university level. So teachers play a big role, and tahniah kepada cikgu-cikgu yang telah melahirkan insan seperti Liva ni. And I think it needs to be systemic, this cultural change. Because I agree with Fatin, environment consciousness is not an option anymore. Because what's happening to planet Earth is happening to us. COVID is a wake-up call. Kerana kita rakus dengan alam, we were very reckless with nature. The viruses decided to strike back. And these are zoonotic diseases is because you are losing the border between man and biodiversity. So I think it needs to be embedded into the education system, but I know education, everything goes wrong, kita minta education system. Mak rempit pun education system, everything education system, but I think environment is something that we can do quite easily with the help of many stakeholders. Dan, I know the question is to KBS. KBS, we recognize that issue belia, youth, merentas semua kementerian, and I'm glad that all our colleagues in other ministries are doing many things. And there are enough policies, I think, in place. There is a new policy called Model Pembangunan Belia Madani 2030, which clearly says that in one of its teras, that youth must be given the platform for their voices to be heard. But I just feel that environmental consciousness needs to be something that kita kena budayakan. It must be our second nature. And kalau kita boleh buat begitu, I think we'll get more Livvashinis in the room. Thank you.
I would like to pivot the discussion towards rallying more youth participation and involvement based on all the points made. Dawn, your connection with nature extends to the virtual YAM, where you hosted Airbnb virtual program, exploring the mangrove and coral reef ecosystem in Malaysia, and your affinity speaks to a deeper understanding and appreciation of the intricacy. My question to you, what role can digital platform play in creating spaces for youth to connect, share ideas and collaborate? And do you think there are existing platforms that have successfully facilitated this? And what lesson can be learned from them?
I think post-COVID or even during COVID have shown how technology could bridge the gap between youth to still carry out advocacy and initiative, especially related to environment. So, so besides my day work, Reef Check Malaysia, and actually the Airbnb virtual program is part of my side work. Just things that I thought like, I'm good at talking, so why not monetize on that, right? So it's, for those who don't know, so if you look up at Airbnb virtual program, so you'll see a lot of hosts. It is basically doing a seated virtual tour. And some people talk about their country, tourism sites. I talk about mangrove and mangrove and also coral reef ecosystem, promoting the work that I'm doing in Reef Check. But it has to be interactive. As so the viewer, it's a point of view, virtual point of view, exploring the marine ecosystem. So that itself bridges the gap, right, to communicate. And it's mostly prominent during the COVID period. We see like how, even private sectors using Zoom, even during universities, people who could not have physical, people are very cool doing lecture session through virtual programs and stuff like that. So a great example is, I'm part of a co-founder for a youth alumni association called YCL Council of Malaysia, and it was registered as an association in 2021. During that period, all of our members have never met physically. It was all through WhatsApp and also virtual call. So during 2022, last year, right, so we got funds to run programs. And even during that period, none of us the five of us have ever sit physically to discuss. It's all through Zoom and it's all through WhatsApp. And what was the product of it? We managed to run a quarterly virtual engagement program covering social, covering environmental issues and economic related issues. Every 3 months we run a virtual program. And at the end of 2022, last year, we managed to run the Wisely Summit Malaysia. Right? Bring all the alumni together in Kuala Lumpur to organize this event. So all without physically sitting down and discuss. So it just shows how technology helps basically. And and that's what we can do as well. So in terms of your next question is, are there digital platform available right now? So I think, to me, it's not a matter of what's available out there, but it's a matter of how are we effectively maximizing the use of this technology. Very simple. We look at Instagram, Facebook. How much are we really maximizing the use of it? People are now making business, right, promoting, marketing, and stuff like that. But in terms of STEM-related topics, I don't think so. It's being emphasized that much. Because last year, I joined a program by the Star News, basically. So one of the programs is basically create a 1-minute silly videos about Malaysia behavior. So I got 4th place and won a washing machine. So my point is, you see, like even people are leveraging social media to do contents. So why not maximize all these platforms to talk about STEM-related issues, right? And create like what she said just now, creating more competition, right? Kementerian Pendidikan could adopt the use of TikTok to create STEM-related topics competition. Do a 1-minute presentation on TikTok, use whatever filter they have, talk about climate change, talk about social issues, and that way we could maximize the use of available technology. We don't necessarily need new technology, there's already existing technology available to maximize youth voices especially. So that's what I would say.
Thank you, Don. Fatin, as your dedication serves as a catalyst for environmental stewardship and you work closely with the community, perhaps you would like to share, are there examples of successful community initiatives that have effectively rallied youth involvement in environmental issues?
Right, thank you so much for the question, and I would just like to draw into my own experience, I feel. So back in 2019, I was part of the Roots and Shoots Malaysia Award program, where basically this is a program to provide volunteering opportunity, but I usually would call it service learning, because I feel like volunteering is a bit like there's a savior complex mindset there, but I like the word service learning because we're giving service, but at the same time, you're also learning from whatever thing that we're doing, right? So basically with this Roots and Shoots Malaysia Award Program RASMA that I was part of, we were just young people from the age of 16 to 25, and we were given the opportunity to actually provide a service learning opportunity for up to 30 local organizations in Malaysia. And that really opened so much doors for me in terms of like understanding the environmental issues in a very local and Malaysian context. For example, even like my master's right now, I'm doing with the Jahai people in Royal Belum State Park, and that was also inspired by my work with the Jahai people when I was doing the service learning program with RASMA. And at the same time, like my organization and me and my friends actually started Youth United for Earth Youth back in 2020 because we were actually part of this program, and we were like, oh, this is so interesting to meet like-minded people, and there are so many other friends that I feel like, shall we just tell stories about our friends, you know? So that's how we came about with youth in general. So I feel like Roots and Shoots Malaysia Award Program RASMA has opened a lot of doors for young people to actually learn and at the same time provide service and open doors more for them in the future. And secondly, I would just like to highlight the campaign to object the Tioman Airport, the new Tioman Airport, months back by Reef Check actually, and I really during this campaign I feel like we could really see the solidarity of different groups. Like for example, Reef Check themselves are just more like on the ground thing and giving us like a list of resources to read, and a lot of other young groups, youth groups actually, do explanatory videos, or they teach other young people how to read, how to send emails to Department of Environment. So I feel like that really shows the amount of solidarity that young people have, especially in objecting extractive or development projects that might be harmful to the environment and also people in general.
Dr. Fatin shared several examples, but I just would like to hear from you, how can we introduce community-based platform that provide a tangible and localized space for youth to participate in environmental activities?
Thank you, Datin.
Perhaps some new ideas, new secret from KBS that you would like to share today?
Right, I mean, we have given a new breath of life to Rakan Muda. Rakan Muda was introduced in 1994. Of course, now I'm already Abang Long, no more Rakan Muda. But I think Rakan Muda is a fantastic platform, and we have got 10 lifestyles. One of it is Rakan Bumi. While preparing for this, I noticed Reef Check also has helped us with Rakan Bumi. Thank you. Rakan Bumi is to get youth, age 15 to 30, or even slightly younger, to be involved in movement. But it's intertwined with other Rakans as well. For example, Rakan Expressi. So I think many of our messages regarding environment can be told through art form, paintings, through music, through poems. I think poems and even the Malay puisi is very powerful in moving hearts. And I'm a strong believer of how art and science has to meet, and it can make changes. So we have got Rakan Expressive, we've got Rakan Bumi. There are many platforms that in KBS we are trying to deploy rather than the normal formal platforms. So Rakan Muda is something that we are moving to. Under the model Pembangunan Belia Madani also, we are trying to encourage our youth to look at the value system of everyday life. You know, I mean, the overindulgence in materialism that goes against SDG 12, for example. Just to quote an example, materialism brings a lot of issues. I mean, you need it, but it also brings a lot of issue. And I think corruption is a big issue. And when the MC was introducing Alam, Alam is also a whistleblower. So, and whenever there's a corruption issue, many times people just look at the government, but I think it's systemic, it's there, and we need to stop it. And I think a research done by Emir, and here is where I think our youth need to look at this issue very deeply. EMIR did a study, and which was published in May this year. Over the 26 years, we have lost a whooping 4.5 trillion ringgit just because of corruption and ketirasan. Imagine what that can do for Malayan tigers. Lara will be happy if that money was given to tigers. And our 4.5 trillion, our national debt is 1.5 trillion. So we need a total change. It's just not fixing environmental issue. It's beyond that. It's a systemic, it's who we are as Malaysians. What value systems do we want? And I think I'm very taken up by some new thoughts that development should not just be centric on economy or on GDP. I think there needs to be a shift. The 11th Malaysia Plan made some move towards looking at development and growth beyond just GDP. There were talks about happiness index, but I think it's not that. It needs to be something more inclusive, because you realize during COVID, I like to use, ada duit pun tak guna, duduk rumah aja, right? So we need to look at other pillars, that which is social and environment, for an inclusive. So I think this whole environment discussion, we need a youth that embraces a new value system. I mean, we who are already Abang Long, we have made many mistakes, but it's not that we are trying to dictate to the young what to do, but I think Malaysia needs that shift. And before I pass over the mic, I think the minister said that, and I think some other speakers spoke that we are having a burning house. But I think it's just like pulling the rubber band and it's about to burst. We can change the trajectory. And Malaysia has got, during my study, I noticed Malaysia, we have got amazing biodiversity. Our population is not very high. Our economy is not too bad. And if we have political will, we can change the trajectory on what's happening, especially on the biodiversity front, and climate change will follow. Because I think for Malaysia, adaptation measures are very important compared to even mitigation at this moment. So with that, my message is, I think together, the young and old, we need a change in our value system in a totality. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nagu. Ms. Liva, hypothetically, if we have the 4.5 trillion ringgit, what are ways school community and even the local community surrounding school can create more excitement for every student and every youth to actively contribute and work together? We know the principles of learning must be fun. So what would be your wish list? How would you like to see things change better?
Okay, thank you for the question. Speaking on how if we had that amount of money, okay. If we're speaking about schools, we can really start by putting in solar panels in each school. It doesn't have to be many in one school, but we can distribute it, meaning probably each block of a school should have solar panels. This small change can bring a big change for the future. Yes, it requires a lot of investment. It needs money. But this small investment will lead to something bigger in the future, which is better for the youth, for the coming generations, and even animals, flora, fauna, all this. Okay. Next, if we speak about that money too, I would say that we discuss with the youth on how to create new innovations, speaking on how, from my experience, being in SMK Raja Perempuan, we had created many types of products ranging from fertilizers all the way to perfumes and even cat medicine, right? With the ideas of all youth, students, and investing this amount into those products, we can create something which is much more sustainable, at the same time raising awareness to the youth. As we know, youth isn't someone who like to make or take actions from their own heart. They usually follow someone who they see. So speaking on how Mr. Don said that we have TikTok and all that, right? And how Dr. Nagu said that we need arts and science to be together. I truly believe that. So from my point of view, to really drag youth, we can actually create ambassadors, meaning famous youth ambassadors. One example I would like to give is like Billie Eilish. Okay, so Billie Eilish is someone famous. She's also a youth, and she has also taken a lot of actions. Like on her concert, she doesn't really let people use plastics and all that. She is also someone who encourages people to be vegan, gluten-free, all this. So if we have an ambassador in Malaysia, if we invest in someone young, let's say a young adult who is famous, this icon can be someone who youth really see and idolize to make themselves bring a change, I would say. So yes, these are the 3 points.
Thank you for an interesting idea. I think solar panel is something doable at schools level with the cooperation from all the corporate sectors. This could be a biggest CSR work that we could do and environmentally driven for the schools. I would like to open the session and pass it to the MC for Q&A. And with that, before I close, as we bring this insightful panel discussion to a close, we traverse a landscape rich with perspective on how youth can wield climate diplomacy as a potent force of change. Our esteemed panel today have shared profound insight on influencing policy advocacy through moral persuasion in both private and public sector. And my sincere thank you to all our panelists today. The convergence of passions, knowledge, and shared commitment to the environmental stewardship has been the central theme today. Let us carry the torch of the advocacy forward with renewed energy and commitment. And for me, it is important not only to develop the youth, create the right climates and culture at national level, local community, university, and even schools. With this, I hand over to the MC for the Q&A.
All right, thank you so much, Datin, Sainursalwa, and also our panelists. Can you give a round of applause again for our panelists? What an insightful session. So we now open the floor for a Q&A session for about 10 minutes before we break for lunch. So if you have any questions for any of our panelists, we have someone who would get the microphone to you. Just kindly raise your hands and introduce yourself and to whom your question is posed to. So do you have any questions from the floor before we take a short break for lunch?
Thank you. Assalamualaikum. My name is Puan Lisa Khalila. I am from Zurafik and Partners. Thank you very much to the host for inviting me and my team to this event. Okay, for the voice of youth, I have left the definition of youth many years back, but I'm a mother of 3 school-going children. Jadi saya sebagai seorang ibu, saya rasa kesedaran tentang alam sekitar sebenarnya dipupuk di rumah. So my question to our young lady, Liva, let's go to basic. What are your thoughts, pendapat Cik Liva, about the role of parents at home, the whole family, with regards to maintaining the commitment of children and the whole family for advocacy of the environment. Itu saja, terima kasih.
Thank you. So, as we said, we're going back to the basics, right? Parents, they play a big role. Whether it is from we are learning our language or how we act as a human, as we say, yes, parents do play a big role, and if we're starting at home, small actions like learning how to recycle or using food waste as compost to fertilize plants, these are tiny things which really help the youth. And I feel that parents sometimes overlook it a little bit because they think it's something that we should learn at school, and it's something that we shouldn't really care much about because they feel that their children do not have the power. So, if parents had to do something, I would say parents should have the awareness and should have the feeling of wanting to change the environment to a better thing, meaning conservation and all that. So, teaching, nurturing their children, and also how do we say, to really persuade them to care for the environment instead of caring for things like on social media, like TikTok dancers and all that. We should really change this perspective of using social media in a bad way. We should change that perspective and bring it to really encouraging our, meaning children, to use this platform as something to educate them more on that topic. Yes, so it really does start at home.
Thank you so much, Livvashini, for that answer. We have the gentleman in front here. Can we get the microphone for the question? Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, Nuri. Thank you. Okay, this question also for Liva. I'm very impressed by you. I just would like to ask a very personal question to you. You know, you are still very young, and I noticed that you really care about nature and environment. When the question from moderator, if your school had money, what would you do? When you answered about putting in solar panel at school, right? So I think that most school children would not think that far. But based on what I've heard from, from the beginning, from what you just said and everything, my question to you is, what really attracted you to the nature? How you got into this? I'm sure once you got into it, you get into it deeper and deeper and deeper, right? But how it started in the first place? That's my question.
Thank you for the question. I really like that question though. Okay, speaking on how I got started with caring for the nature. Okay, if we dig real deep down, it started off with me having this pet dog. He was a German Shepherd, which I had. And sadly, he died due to a disease. We're still not sure what the disease was, but it was something caused by his food, if I'm not mistaken. So this really brought me to the thought on why was his food the cause of his death when the food was labeled as organic and all this? When we dig deeper to it, meaning, yes, it is stated as organic, but it could be using fertilizers which are probably harmful or not suitable for the animal. That was one of the reasons. Okay, secondly, as I mentioned just now, ambassadors. Basically, Billie Eilish was this icon which I saw mainly as someone who really cared for the environment. So that also brought me towards caring more. Thirdly, of course, the school being held all these programs and these campaigns, competitions, tiny mini competitions at school. Not to forget our teachers' encouragements, our seniors. These were all something that brought me to the thought of, wow, these people are someone who can really bring a change. It doesn't have to be from us probably spending a lot of money, but tiny changes, maybe like recycling, as I said. If each and every one of us do it and each one of us care about it, then it's going to bring a change. We can't bring a change by ourselves. So me thinking on, okay, if I participated, I might be one person, but then maybe my juniors might be like, okay, she's doing it, let me do it too. So this thought of me being able to influence other people and also being able to help without getting a reward, that was something. So yes, that's a nice question. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do we have more questions for Livvashini or? No. Lady at the back there. Yeah.
Hi. A question for Fatin, really. I was quite interested with what you said about that you're privileged, or sometimes conservation is for those that are privileged. You know, you can do conservation work because you are privileged to a certain extent. So I'm just curious, from your point of view, how can youth from communities that can barely put food on the table be involved? So my question is, how can youth, right, from communities that can barely put food on the table be involved in conservation work or, you know, caring about the environment?
Thank you so much, Lara, for the question. And this is very close to me, I feel, because I'm such a huge advocate for positionality. Like, when we do something, we really need to think about, our privilege, our identity that lead us to that particular opportunity. I feel like, I would say, a lot of young people that I've been talking about with, even like interviewing them to be featured in our Instagram posts, for example, they always say that, we want to be part of conservation, but because of the pay and all, I feel like giving up and not doing it anymore. And so a lot of them actually moved away into something that can make more money, I would say. So the ones that are left are basically those who are, of course, passionate and at the same time, in a way, have privilege in that sense also. But I feel like when it comes to community and getting people from the community to be engaged, number one would be accessibility to that particular opportunity even. For example, like the volunteering opportunity that we're talking about, right? I feel like to volunteer, you of course need time. And to volunteer, you need support from family. And I've also heard of young people who like to volunteer, but mak tak kasih. Ataupun saya kena kerja, saya nak buat Grab. Walaupun sekarang tengah cuti semester, but I want to do Grab. I want to do Grab, for example, because they just do not have the time and capacity to be part of conservation or to be part of this service learning or volunteering opportunity, even though it's there, right? So I feel that is something that providers of these opportunities really need to think about, the accessibility of these programs and these opportunities. And secondly, I feel like when it comes to community, it goes back to languaging, because probably we're talking about climate change. We use all these big words, right, in this room, in conferences, but people on the ground, youth on the ground, for example, youth in community, mungkin tak tahu pun apa itu krisis iklim ataupun tak pernah dengar. But I feel like because right now I'm also working with people from coastal communities, and I feel like they actually know what climate change is, but they just don't label it as climate change. And I feel like we need to speak their language too, because I was interviewing nelayan, fisher folks, and they have all this knowledge and also words that they use to talk about clouds, to talk about precipitation, to talk about hujan ke tak hujan, selamat ke tak nak pergi ke the sea, for example. So I feel like the languaging needs to be tailored a bit to the point that people on the ground, we need to speak their language, I feel, especially when we're talking about climate action. Yeah.
No, I mean, that's a really good question, but I mean, there are a lot of published studies on poverty and environmental degradation, but I think we must not just look at environmental movement as all these big UN forums, this advocacy. Our traditional lifestyle, I mean, Japan has used this word satoyama very strongly, living in harmony with nature, rural landscapes. I think if you just look at our orang asli, right, they've got a wisdom of how to live in harmony with nature. So I think these are also indirect, dah jadi sebahagian daripada kehidupan di mana mereka hidup sebati dengan alam, right? And these are things that we need to recognize. And I think by giving a value to biodiversity, I know my colleagues in Sarawak, for example, through Sarawak Biodiversity Center, has allowed for some orang asli and orang asal di sana untuk commodify not only the product but also the knowledge systems which are so valuable, right? So I think that can also be seen as you may not have money, but you can live in harmony with nature. But also another thing to put things in context for a young country like Malaysia, at the dawn of independence, 52% of Malaysians were under poverty. Fast forward, figures nowadays show it's below 1%. We had to do affirmative actions. For example, people whack us because we palm oil, I know, but we had to do it. We had to do something to bring people out of poverty. So I think the narrative, many a times we get whacked because of all these land use practices, but Malaysia can still stand proud and say 54% of our land is still under forest cover, and if you plus tree cover, it'll be probably more than that. But again, it goes back again to a value system. Janganlah keterlaluan. The moderation, the materialism. I mean, yeah, we use land use, but couldn't use it wisely. And Malaysia had used it wisely, but now we are at this juncture that we now need to think about, let's not break the rubber band that is about to break, the tipping points. We need to bring back the Malayan tiger. We have lost the Sumatran rhinoceros, but it's not too late to save many other species. So it's just not tied to economic, but we also need to value and celebrate these traditional lifestyles that we always have. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Nagulendran. I would now like to invite on stage Tan Sri Zakri Abdul Hamid to the stage for the prize giving ceremony to the panel of speakers and also moderators. In the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to remind you once again, do pay a visit to our website, Alam's website, at www.alam.earth, and please follow, tag, and also mention Alam on your social media accounts and all the posts that you make on your social media accounts. The handle is at Amanah Lestari Alam, at Amanah Lestari Alam. Thank you very much. And also, do not forget to fill up the feedback form that we've provided in the information kit that you were given. Thank you. All right, thank you so much once again. Lami, please join me in giving a final round of applause to Tan Sri Zakri, Dr. Nagulendran, Nurfatin, Hamzah, Atteleth, Peris, and also Livvashini. Thank you so much for that insightful session. Please fill up our feedback form in the information kit that you've been given. And folks, it has hit 12:30 p.m. We'll take a short break. We've prepared food and beverages for you to enjoy. So lunch is served, enjoy, and we'll see you back in here at 1:30 p.m. That's 1:30 p.m. and I'll see you soon. Bon appetit. Thanks.